But what is your creative process in the sense of inspiration? Your thoughts, one creative process is literally, how we make the work. But I think making the work is just one part of it.
All right, so my inspiration is often from nature. I like being able to sort of capture a moment that possibly others may not have taken the time to notice.
How I start with my process is like my focus on what I find inspiring. So I will create sources through pencil meter. So I struggle with like thinking in my brain like creative ways to pull things all together.
My artistic process really stems from, I mentioned, I'm hugely inspired by art history as well as nature, and which works out well for this book, being florals and all.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. I am back with another episode, and I have one, two, three for now, three guests from our upcoming book, which is upcoming basically when we're recording. I have the sample. I've already shown two of my guests, but we, by the time this must come out, we already would have the book out for pre-order, and I am so excited to introduce you to three artists from our upcoming book, 101 Floral Art Book, which is a very, very exciting zigzag book project. And I'm so excited to have three of you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dawn. Hi, Christina. And hi, Casey. Thank you so much for coming on the Arts to Arts podcast. I would love for three of you to introduce yourself and tell us, all our listeners, who you are, what you do, and where you're joining us from.
Certainly. My name is Dawn Bouchard. I am from Brockville, Ontario, Canada. I am a retired school principal who, post-retirement, decided that I really wanted to get into something I'd been passionate about in my youth, but hadn't had an opportunity to really do much art after having children and working. So it's only in the last about 5 years or so that I picked up my paintbrushes again and began painting. And now it's pretty consuming. I find that it's the place I want to be all the time. I work in both acrylic paints and soft pastels. Soft pastels have only been in the last about year and a half. My father passed away, and he also had a lot of art materials. He liked to paint after he retired, including some pastels. So I picked up his pastels and haven't looked back.
What about you, Christina? Thank you so much for sharing, Dawn.
My name is Christina Cowan. I'm located in Connecticut in the United States. I am a social worker, but I've been transitioning to being a full-time artist instead. I find that this is where I really want to be. Like, this brings me happiness. This is like when I'm at my social work job, I'm just thinking like, I need to be making art. Like, if I'm going to die tomorrow, I have so many paintings I want to make, and that's kind of how I took this route to do full-time art. So I mostly work in oil, and I mostly paint portraits of women and then like floral still lifes. I like to incorporate a lot of collage into my work with like poetry and quotes so that it kind of tells a story in some kind of aspect and just gives it lots of texture, spray paint, that kind of stuff. Very fun. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What about you, Casey?
I'm Casey Christmas. I am from South Carolina. So we've had some beautiful weather already compared to, I feel like, the other guests. I am a part-time middle school art teacher. That's just new and more recent, and I've enjoyed that aspect of it. But of course, my first love is making art and creating new things. I mainly work in acrylic paint and paper collage. I love doing that, and I'm hugely inspired by art history besides florals and nature. And so I like combining the two. And my work usually takes on a tone of either very meditative and very quiet and peaceful, or very snarky. So, two different aspects of my personality, but I love exploring that and even working through different themes in art.
Wonderful. It's so exciting because what's the beauty about having different people, even though we're all part of one project, but and all of you have a similar interest, which is a lot about nature and floral, but also our backgrounds and how we approach our art and what it means to us and what we're trying to say really differs. I want to ask you about the artwork that we've published in this book. Can we talk a little bit, because the idea of the podcast was also to give people a little bit of context about your creative process and the idea behind the work that you make, so that when somebody looks at you and looks at the work and looks at the book, they're able to really not only see an art, but they also are able to see the artist, the story, what made you. But you know, I was just talking to Dawn, and I was talking about how I had just before the call had started, I was looking at Dawn's artwork apparently, because I was doing a few print checks and I could see a painting behind Dawn right now, and I was like, oh, I can recognize that this is your work. And now when you tell me, Dawn, that your father had those pastels, and I have also lost my mom, so I do feel like art making has that kind of connection. Sometimes when we lose someone, it's either you know we are trying to build that connection with ourselves or someone we lose. And now, there's this connection that we often build, and I think art is all about community and connection. How about you start with Dawn, and can you take us through your creative process first? Then we'll go to the art. What is your creative process? How do you make work?
So it varies a little bit depending on whether I am working in pastel or working in acrylic paint, but I am attracted very much to florals. That's one of my favorites to work in, and landscapes. I have spent a number of hours working on pet portraits because those are popular and people reach out and ask me to do those. Um, I do I do tend to really like bright, vibrant colors, and I'm attracted to having that sort of contrast between the warm and the cool colors. I often like the warm colors as my subject matter with the cool colors in the background. I also really love when I can do very soft edges in the background, sort of faded out, almost if you were taking a portrait mode photo with more crisp pictures, crispness in the front. Um, and when I work in landscapes, I actually start with acrylic paint and paint first in acrylic, and then I will cover in pastel afterwards. So I have to use a special gesso so that I can get some tooth into my paper so the pastel will stick. But that's something I've just recently started doing for landscapes, and I'm enjoying that more than painting landscapes.
But what is your creative process in the sense of inspiration? Your thoughts, one creative process is literally, how we make the work. But I think making the work is just one part of it. But everything that goes behind and inside of making that work, how do you find inspiration? How do you set your mood? And, how do you tackle your subjects? How do you think about that?
All right, so my inspiration is often from nature. I like being able to sort of capture a moment that possibly others may not have taken the time to notice, and making it something that lasts. And I really like sometimes concentrating on sort of those small nuances, the details of something that's very small, and making it beautiful that people see and know it's beautiful, but in their life they're so busy they pass by. And so I like the ability to really sort of capture those moments and make them lasting moments, and giving people a new perspective on something that they sometimes just take for granted. So that's sort of where I get my inspiration. What sort of moments can I hold on to that are sometimes very fleeting, but are beautiful and, and should be lasting in our minds?
I love that. I love that. I do agree with that. And I would love to hear your thoughts as well, Christina and Casey. And please make sure this is not a one-way interview. Please pitch in your questions and make this a good and fun conversation. It's it's an open-ended platform. You can come pitch in your ideas and questions to each other. Make sure that you can do that. What do you think? What is it for you, Christina and Casey?
Um, how I start with my process is like my focus on what I find inspiring. So I will create sources through Pixelmator. So I struggle with like thinking in my brain like creative ways to pull things all together. So making the sources on Pixelmator allows me to have that creative process from the very beginning. And I'll often find inspiration in women that are like in very elegant poses, in poses that speak about self love or about love in general or happiness, like uplifting kind of feelings. And then I'll incorporate like bright colors and like abstract aspects and then florals usually into them as well. Um, and I'll start with sketching and then I'll go into collaging, which I find so fun, like incorporating things that tell a story about each painting. It's so fun. I love it. And then I'll do spray paint and then go into oil. So I'll do transparents, I'll do cools, and then I'll do warms, and then I'll do scumbling. And I'd really like to finish with cold wax on top, just to give extra texture and kind of soften some of the areas because I tend to be very bright. I like bright colors. Um, so that's basically my process, and um, like I definitely find inspiration in the beauty of people and the beauty of flowers and the beauty of femininity, and basically empowering through actually being like open to your feminine side instead of shrinking yourself.
I love that. What about you, Casey?
My artistic process really stems from, I mentioned, I'm hugely inspired by art history as well as nature, and which works out well for this book, being florals and all. And what I love about art history is that it just shows our humanity and how we obviously experience different things over the history of mankind, but there are very certain things, certain emotions, certain experiences that we definitely experience throughout the course of mankind. And so tapping into that, for example, I know for the piece that I have for this book, it's called Hope. And the original picture of this woman just holding, and she has this very uplifted gaze to heaven and seems in the moment very just hopeful. And I really clung to that when I made the work, and the idea of just, okay, that's an emotion I feel. I feel hopeful sometimes. And florals, I feel especially, I think Christina and Dawn talk about, it's such a beautiful emotive thing that we all connect to in nature and how we can see ourselves in it. And so that's definitely my process, is finding connections to the past and putting a new twist on it, bringing it to the present. And then that's kind of the mindset of it. Artistically, I'm kind of unlike Christina, who's apparently, your process with your experimentation, different mediums is incredible. I'm very boring when it comes to paper collage. I'm a purist in some ways, that I don't really branch out too much mixed media. I'm doing better about that, trying to. But yeah, I love going through old art history books, cutting things out, and doing analog collage, putting them next to each other, what works. And then recently, even acrylic painting, kind of acting like paper collage. I've been taking old still lives from like the Dutch era in the 1600s and painting them on panels. Like I cut them out and pasted them. So yeah.
Wonderful. That sounds very interesting, and it's so unique. Like it's like you said, I'm pretty much like Christina. I love, and I think I myself fall between Christina and Casey, both of you. Like I feel like when I look at people like, who are very experimental and layered, I really find it exciting because I love the play of texture and how playful it gets. And I love that, and I do include a lot of that. But I can feel myself holding myself a lot back, you know, just, this toss between being a maximalist and then being, you know, just letting things be and being, just let the color be, or having something have its own space and beauty. So I do agree. Tell me something. What as Arts to Hearts, we're focused. Of course, this book is focused on floral. We put out a call for art where we invited artists uh, to submit their floral themed work. And we're very excited to have so many of you. We have over, this is a 101 artist curation we've done. But one another thread that is common between all of us, all of you, is, we're hyper focused and um, really on this mission to unite women artists. And women artists, I think, how Dawn has spoken, she's, you're a principal, you've been in a different career, Christina, Casey. I would like to hear your own perspectives of a how does being the role of a woman, does that define or impact your art in any way? Um, is that or your own experience of being in emerging early um, women in the arts in a general? What is your experience with both of them?
Do you want me to start? so so it's nice, I find, that women have a more prominent presence in the arts than they had historically. And I feel very fortunate to be in this time where you have more opportunities. And to be honest, I don't often think about the fact that I'm a woman painting at all. It's not really something that is on my mind when I'm doing my work. But to be part of your book that focuses on women and their work makes me really proud.
I'm so glad that does. Thank you so much. What about you both?
Like, I feel fortunate that I don't have to think about being a woman and being an artist. But I feel like if this was 50 years ago, I probably wouldn't have the same opportunities, especially like nowadays too, with like social media and just having more exposure and more opportunities to be included. So I'm definitely very proud to be a part of this, and like any Arts to Hearts submissions for emerging women and anything, I love that. I definitely feel more true to myself, I think, now.
I think to echo what Dawn and Christina said, I don't really think about it too much, that I'm a woman, just because, like we've already mentioned, the opportunities. But what I definitely notice is how supportive women artists are of each other. I mean, obviously, this Arts to Hearts and everything that you guys are doing is wonderful. But even just the community that I'm involved with in the arts, just the women standing behind each other and being like, yes, go for it. And that's what's just really incredible to see.
Yeah, wonderful. But also tell me something. How does, when I asked about being a woman, I necessarily didn't mean in the sense of, us as a gender, but also just the role that we play. I remember, we're just not artists. So many times we're playing a role of a wife, a mother, a caregiver, and that not in the sense of limits you also, but I think it also some days empower you also because it inspires you. I think let's say for personally me, being a woman really is a very very big part of anything and everything I do. Arts to Hearts project is an outcome of my own experience as a woman, my experience as a woman artist, feeling the need that I think I still feel that women are highly underrepresented, highly undervoiced, and we need a better, more consolidated, more louder voice. Versus also my own art is something that, with my own experience as an artist, as a woman, what I feel and what I've experienced, that becomes a very big source of inspiration for me. So I'm just trying to gauge here if your identity as a woman does that interplay in your creative identity.
I know that it has an effect as far as all the other roles that we do have to play, as far as what my availability and time allowances are in order to be able to paint. And it does come into impact when I was a caregiver for both of my parents, and I am now a caregiver for my grandchildren. And I watched my father, when he retired, have unlimited amounts of time to paint. He didn't have any other huge things that were blocking his time so he could spend as much or as little time as he wanted, where I really have to work to carve out the time. Like if it was up to me, I'd be in my studio every single day and that would be what I would be doing. But I really have to like be very thoughtful and sort of block off some time and say, on this day and this morning, this is some time I'm going to take. And I do feel that that is a side effect of the fact as women, we do have different expectations, especially as caregivers, as to how we spend our time. As far as inspiration, I am a little bit like Christina. Is it Christina or Christy? Where I do really like my work to have sort of that feminine feel. I feel that comes out in the colors and the softness and that type of thing. But really, it's almost subconscious.
Subconscious. Yeah. No, I can relate with that. Yeah. What about you both?
Um, I definitely feel like from my experience of being a woman and being at the stage now where I finally feel like more confidence and like I feel like I have a voice, like I'm not as like scared, I guess, to be me. Um, I think that's shown a lot in my art. Like a lot of the quotes that I will use is about speaking your voice and not making yourself feel small. And a lot of my colors and my style is just very bright and like noticeable. It's not, you know, mundane. And I think that is showing more of like who I am and how I'm growing as a woman. And that in turn is giving me more confidence.
What about you, Casey?
I am actually a new mom, relatively new, and so that's a whole other thank you, a whole other hat to wear, as well as being my father recently went through stage 3 cancer, and he's recovered, which is a huge praise. But definitely been wearing different hats as well as just being myself, which has been a very interesting process, and it's especially the new mom transition was a huge, funny enough, inspiration to me. I mean, it wasn't easy. And I think in the long run, compared to so many people who've experienced childbirth and child rearing, I had it relatively easy. I have a very supportive husband and family. But that inspired me just in that sense of whittling me down to my core and just, okay, who am I? What makes me happy? And that definitely comes out in my art. And just, I've gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, does this art make me happy that I'm making? If the answer is no, then I'm thinking, okay, I don't have time to pursue that. I need to prioritize the art that brings me joy.
You know, I'm looking at your work that's published in the book, like you mentioned. And anybody who's watching this can also see this while we edit. Um, it's called Hope, and it has this. I don't have it in with me. I have it somewhere in the book, but it has these flowers hugged. It's like you holding these flowers. And now, when I have context to what you're saying in your own experience, it's like you're holding a baby.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny because that was way before I mean, I wanted to be a mother eventually, but that was a few years before that. But I still recognize that.
Yeah, wonderful. I think that's amazing. Okay, tell me something. What do you think is one of the, to each one of you, what has been the hardest part in your journey so far? As someone who's growing your career, trying to find a foot in the art world, building the studio, creative work, and your practice.
The hardest thing, I think, is finding time, and the next part is as also about trying to find my style and making it something that's recognizable because I do experiment a lot and I find that I go through one set of paintings that look all sort of similar and have a style, and then I go to the next set, and every time it's like finding consistency that makes it recognizable to my name. I find a challenge, and I also find that I do have some goals of wanting to sort of loosen up my work because I paint very tightly and I'm very detailed, and it takes me a lot of time, and I like to be able to paint more freely and more loosely and delve into some mixed mediums. And I feel as soon as I do that, it will be another look that won't be recognizable anymore, right? It just keeps morphing and changing. So that for me, that's sort of the biggest challenges. Yes.
Yeah. But I think, you know what, at the end of the day, we're all on our own journeys, and some days I think, um, it is as much as it is important to have consistency, it is also equally important for us to be able to find ourselves in a place where we naturally feel that this is something I am doing. And also after some time, it's like, you go in class one, you read through it, you feel very belonged, you optimize everything, and you feel like I need to now go to class two. And it's like a new curve. You will start to look differently, you'll start to feel differently. And it's not a change, it's actually progress and evolution. And even though we will keep evolving, yeah, even though you'll keep moving at it, even where you will evolve, you will still be the same person. Like, year on year we grow and evolve and we start to look differently. But when we see things in the grander scheme of things, everything's, if you pull those puzzles together, they still look a part of those same puzzles, don't you think? What about you, Christina?
Um, I have found the hardest part for me now. Prior, it was definitely finding my style. That was what kind of held me back for a long, long, long time. And now it is finding my audience. So I'm at that awkward stage of like, okay, I'm reaching people, but they're not really people that can either afford to buy my art or have like the space for my art, or they're other artists where they're making their own art. So I haven't reached that audience of like collectors yet. Um, and that's where I'm kind of struggling on how to do that. Um,
Ditto. I agree with that.
Probably like the trickiest part, and like the part of the business side where a lot of people don't think about until it's like, okay, I make this beautiful art, but it's not being seen by the right people.
No, I think this is a conversation that's the most required. A lot of people feel stuck in this part, and I think a lot of times, like you said, Christina, very well. A lot of time, artists, I think there's one turning point where we're making art, and a lot of time they think the primary job is to do that, which is, but when you have to see yourself, no matter if you're an independent artist, if you're a gallery artist, whatever part of the field you fall into, we all operate as a business. If there is a transaction, we have to think about how that transaction needs to happen. How do we find that person who is willing to transact something for the work that we're making, and how do we find them? I think, and that also evolves with how we evolve. Like Dawn said, that one set of work could completely attract one kind of audience, and another set of work, or as you grow and your work grows, then that could also be the price point to, or your subject matter, all of that. And it's a deep, intense conversation that really needs to be thought about, for sure. What about you, Casey?
I think I would echo Christina's about the business side. I feel pretty comfortable in the work that I'm making. And I mean, I'm always still like, well, I like making this. I think some people like this. So hopefully they'll buy this. And I've been lucky enough to have different venues to have my art as well as my website to sell. And that's pretty much the biggest thing I'm working on right now is just ticking all those boxes of selling things and making sure everything is correct because my personality is I do not want the government coming after me.
No, they're definitely not coming after you, for sure. You need to run towards them with lots more collectors and buyers, and make sure you reach a point where they're like, hi, Casey, we need to speak to you.
Then I run away.
Yeah, then you run away. Then it makes sense. But right now, I'm sure that will happen. You'll find um, a lot more people. But yeah, I think this is something that, again, with the idea, why we curate and why we do the work that we do is like you said. There's so many platforms. It's like the chicken and the egg problem. The chicken comes first or the egg? Like, do I do I grow first and then find clients, or it's like I need to make sales, but I also need to get my work seen by more. But how do I get my work seen by more people unless I have, it's like it's a infinite loop in itself. And if you need to be a part of a show, people will ask you, oh, what is let's say your CV, your history, etc. And to reach to a show, you need that. And to be a part of any platform, they ask you how many shows you've done, how much work you've shown. So when I started, when in specifically in the very early years, I felt that there was still so many good artists who were who really did have and needed just nudge, but there were very few, actually very and next to no platforms which really push the work of emerging. If we're pushing the same people, it does help them, etc. But we also need to make sure that we're uplifting the upcoming batches and newer works and newer talents, specifically women, because I think in case of women, the talent comes from so many different age groups, so many different, it's just so varied, and it just needs a very different infrastructure versus a general audience. And what's exciting about all of these books that we create, inclusive of the 101, um, and I love the theme floral for sure, is that just this feeling of seeing upcoming, it's not upcoming works from early emerging artists in one book. And for an artist, like, to have that feeling, to be able to find that confidence, to be able to take their work to different galleries, and this being distributed in different parts of the world, I think that really is one way for us to be able to contribute to this problem. Okay, one last question, which is okay, can you tell me a little bit about the work that's been published in the book? And if you are willing to share your experience on how does it make you feel, I will make sure I have a sample I can show you here. But I can't wait for you to have your own copies once we open the pre-orders. What's exciting about this book is it's very unique in the sense of it's made. It's a zigzag book. This is a rejected sample, so please don't see the layout. But it's a zigzag book. So it opens from here, and it also does open from here. So I want to know what your artwork is, and I also want people to hear about the artwork. And if you do like what they say, please make sure you grab a copy of 101 and support their work. And if you're willing to share your experience on how it has been working with Arts to Arts Project.
All right, so the piece that I have in the book is called Sun Kissed Petals. And it is what attracted me to that image was really how translucent those petals were with the sun coming and shining through them, and all of the overlap of shadow and light. And it was done in acrylic paint as opposed to pastel. And again, it was though with all the bright pinks with the blue backgrounds. Um, what was the rest of that question?
Your experience of being in the book and your experience of being published and with Arts to Arts Project.
Right. So for me, that is such an honor to be included in your book. It's interesting because although I've been painting fairly frequently over the last 5 years, it's only been in the last half of a year, 6 to 8 months, that I felt I could actually use the term artist with my name. I would say I was a hobbyist, or what. I just couldn't. I felt awkward saying I was an artist. So this really is a huge confidence builder. In fact, I was originally in. Thank you. So I was also found the process working with Arts to Hearts a wonderful process. I was also part of your 2023 Emerging Artists book, and so I have that proudly on display in my.
Oh, that's one of the best books we've published in the past few years. I love that book. It's a gorgeous book.
So these kinds of moments bring me huge honor and confidence. I, in the fall, applied to maybe about 4 or 5 juried competitions, and in each case, I was selected to be part of a publication. So I'm now in, including this book, two books, 4 magazines. So it's been a huge confidence builder, and I can actually feel confident saying I'm an artist because that's a hard thing to. It's a hard thing to say because it's hard to connect with all the hard working, beautiful artwork out there and feel a part of that. You feel like you feel like an imposter in some ways.
No, I do agree. It is very reaffirming sometimes, you know, when we, whatever we say, but when we hear it from someone else, when someone else recognizes us with the tag that we really want to be, I think that really makes it real for, someone. How about you, Christina and Casey?
Um, so the piece that I have included in the book is called Table for Two. It's a floral still life. And this was a part of a series that I did with just florals, and it was focused around the theme of self love. So the quote that's used in it is all about setting your finest china, whether you're inviting just yourself or someone else. And it's about giving yourself the best, loving yourself the best, and doing whatever you want, even if it's just for you because you deserve it. And this piece, I really try to have it be dreamy and very light and bright, in not a intense kind of way, but a dreamy kind of way. Um, and incorporate a lot of like fading and popping and that kind of stuff, like variety. And I really, thank you. I really liked how it turned out, and it was like a style that I had been trying to get to through doing the series, and that one was the final one, and that one I was very very happy with. So the fact that it's now included in a book is amazing. Like this is my first published work, like in print. I had been included in stuff online, but never in a physical thing. So the thank you. I'm so excited. Like the fact that I will have something that's like tangible.
It's not just a book, it's a very, very unique. I'm very, very when we did commit to this book, I was so anxious because I was like, this is a huge undertaking because we're trying to, create a very different book. It is like a flip book. We have, it doesn't have a back. It has two fronts, and we're doing foiling, and it's a very luxury, gorgeous book. So it's just not another book. Just the feeling of seeing your work in such a pretty place, and it just feels like, it's a very different feeling, I think.
It definitely is. And like just seeing, also just having the whole book be around a common theme, it makes you feel so much more like included and understood. Like you have like your people. Like this is a good representation of your people in the art world through this book, and I'm just very proud to be a part of that.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. How do you want to share any of your experience? How was it? Did you enjoy being a part of the book? Yeah, and you can be as honest as that. It doesn't have to be. Uh,
I don't have a lot to base it off of, but it has been so seamless. And like the fact that we were getting like drafts and we were able to submit edits, and we could be very included in the process, was just such a great experience, especially for like the first time really collaborating with something, which is nice to be able to say, like, I collaborated with this. Like we all did. We were all a part of it. It wasn't just, oh, I submitted this and now it's being printed. Like we're a part of it. We had our say. So I think that made it just even better of an experience.
oh, wow. Thank you so much. I love this feedback. Thank you so much. I think this time we did overbid because, as we all know, we did one draft and we did a print check, and none of us in the team were happy with how the artworks were looking. We felt they were too small, and we really worked through 3 nights and really redid the whole book itself, and then reached out to each one of you and put you back to work because you had to do a lot of reviewing of your own work. So it was a lot of reviewing. So I really appreciate everybody being so patient, and it was a little bit of long process, but I'm glad we made it. We made it here. Thank you so much, Christina. What about you, Casey?
We've already talked a little bit about my piece that is very cool to be included in this book. It stemmed from a series of work where I was working through the alphabet and trying to think of words that I wanted to manifest into my own life. So I think some of the other words were like abundance or justice and stuff like that. And so hope happened to be one of those. And it was the idea of taking florals from our history, kind of intermixing also the different hands and trying to grasp onto these different things, kind of bringing them into your life. And so hope is probably my favorite one of that series of the 26 that I made. And yeah, I'm so thankful to be a part of this and honored. I love being able to have that collaborative process like we've already talked about, because I mean, I'm not in very many books or anything like that. I've had a few, but I've truly had the opportunity to say, okay, here's, how the work's going to look, and are you happy with this? What do you want to include? And I also just love the opportunity to be included with so many beautiful makers. One of the things I've loved is kind of going through and being like, oh, look at this artist as well, and the little teas. So many amazing, talented people.
Amazing. I love that too. I think that's the best part. Even when we work on a book for months and months, and there's one point that we can literally identify. Like I said, when I looked at Dawn and I looked at her artwork behind, I was like, okay, I recognize you. We look at the artwork so much and the artist so much that, when I see you on a live, or if I'm seeing you on, I'm like, oh, I know she, so many times we look at it, we're just discussing something. I'm like, oh, I recognize this artist. She's from this book, and, she belongs to this. It's just how we start to remember each other, the community it builds, and the connections also that it builds. So thank you so much, three of you. Thank you so much for your time. I am so glad to and so honored to have all of you in this book, and I'm so happy to be able to give you this platform and for you to be able to give us this chance to support your work. And I want to request everybody who's listening to this podcast, if you do like what you heard, I want to encourage you to support their work. And it does, of course, mean that you can buy this book, but you can also buy their work. You can follow them on Instagram, support them, like them, share this video, share this podcast. I think support comes in so many different ways, and even every sense, every bit of support makes a huge difference. So thank you so much, everybody. One last thing, Dawn, Christina, Casey, where can we find you and where can people support you? And then I'll let you go.
So I am on Instagram under Dawn Renee Bouchard, and I also have my own website called Forever Vistas, and I've also joined your Women in Arts network under Dawn Bouchard.
I'll make sure we have all the links, Dawn's and everybody's mentioned in the article of this episode, and you'll be able to see their websites and portfolios and Instagrams. But we can go for the sake, yeah.
So my Instagram is _ Christina Cowan, and I'm currently working on a website, so hopefully that'll be up in about a month. And then I also joined Women in Arts Network as well.
Congratulations. Thank you. Hi, Casey.
You can find me on Instagram at casey.christmas, and then I have my website, caseychristmas.net.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I hope to see you soon again. And congratulations. I can't wait to see you have your book. And once you do, make sure you share a video, a photo, a message of what it truly feels like. I can't wait for you to.
Can I take a second and thank you for providing these opportunities for us and for creating the Art Style Heart network that you've created? It has been wonderful, and I want to thank you because I know there's a lot of work involved in all the different projects you have going on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being recognized. It does get like, a lot of times people feel like it's so easy. It's not only a very difficult process, it's an extremely cost. We are small, but I'm not a one-man person. Like we have a team who manages, and even then it feels a handful. But I really appreciate you supporting us and making, I don't think it can go without the support that we receive from you. So I again thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.